with the release of Twisters. It's got me thinking about disaster movies. I really enjoyed watching things get tore up, and I don't think I'm alone in that. That movie had a huge box office weekend. But it's not the first disaster movie, not by a long shot. Disaster movies have been huge in cinema for a very long time. And we always like to think, oh yeah, sure, I could survive that. But I wanted to honestly look at this, right? Would I survive? And I don't want to think, hey, I'm the main character here or anything like that. So we're going to be talking about, like, as an extra, a normal, everyday person in one of these movies, what are my odds of surviving? Now, we're not going to cheat and be like, well, I wouldn't be in that situation. That's dumb and lazy and boring. We are in the heat of it. We're in the disaster. Would we be able to survive? Let's talk about it right now. Now, we're going to be talking about man-made disasters and natural disasters here. We're going to talk about one that's kind of a mixture of both first off, and that's going to be the Poseidon Adventure. If you don't know what the Poseidon Adventure is, it's a giant cruise ship, the Poseidon, that gets flipped upside down during a storm, and then people have to try to escape the boat by working their way up through the boat from the top to the bottom, actually. It's like that one episode of the Pokemon animated series where Ash and Team Rocket have to, like, kind of team up to be able to escape. It's pretty good. So this is one where it's like, okay, it's just like sheer will to survive. And I've got to be honest with myself. Do I have the guts to do the kind of things that the people do in this movie? Am I like going hand over hand on like a pipe that's over like fire and everything? I don't know. I don't know if I've got it in me. Upper body strength also not a strong suit for me. So that is another thing to be worried about. I think I'm going to put this one in unlikely because I just really don't like my odds on it. Hopefully, if I do die in the Poseidon Adventure, I'm saving somebody. Like maybe there's a little kid next to me and I just heroically hand the child up to their mother as the platform below me falls, and then I plummet into like a fiery grave. So, I mean, if I'm going to go out, man, that's the way to do it. Everybody in the movie be like, hey, that guy was pretty cool. Now let's talk about twisters. Now, when it comes to these natural disasters, I've got to talk about them in the way that they're presented in the movie. Do I know enough about a real life twister to make an educated guess on it? No, not really. So in the movie, the kind of people I'm imagining myself being in this scenario is, there's a scene where there's a big storm coming and our main characters are running up to these people who are like selling stuff on the street at this like a carnival, and they're like, you got to get out of here. And some of the people are like slowly like pulling their stuff down, and they're like, no, you got to go. As soon as somebody runs up and is like, there's a twister coming, you don't got to tell me twice. I'm gone. All right. I'm making it to that shelter. Eventually, there's going to run out of room in the shelter, and you're going to get stuck in the building that's not ready for this storm that's coming in. And that ain't going to be me, all right? Though it's very important when we hurry to this shelter, we're not pushing anybody out of the way. And the number one thing you have to do to survive a disaster movie is not be a jerk, right? In a disaster movie, when you're watching and all of a sudden like somebody's being rude to somebody's working at a store, or somebody's pushing a kid out of the way, or somebody kicks a dog, snakes on a plane, throws a dog into a snake's mouth, those people are goners. They're dead. And frankly, you're kind of glad to see them go. So we have to be purposeful in how we are getting to this storm shelter, but at the same time, helping an old lady there too, again, carrying a small child. These are things that will help us survive in the movie. Because of my cautious nature and my friendliness, I think that we would survive this one. Now, in the movie Twisters, it feels like those things just spring up out of nowhere, unless, like in the plot, they're like, oh no, we have to hunt it and figure out where it's going to be. But every once in a while, they're just like, whoa, one's here. A hurricane, we get a little bit more warning, right? Again, my cautious nature is going to help us be able to survive this. Why? Because, they say a hurricane is coming, and I'm going to be like, okay, what do they tell us we need to do? Do we need to shelter in place? We're going to do that. Do we need to leave? We're going to do that. Now, I'm not somebody who's grown up around these big storms, so I'm in no way like, nah, it'll be fine. I'm definitely an out-of-towner, all right? I'm showing up. I'm going to be like, they say that there's a big disaster coming. Let's get out of here. Am I an exciting person to watch in a movie? No, not very much. But I tell you what, I'm making it to the sequel. I'm going to be in that sequel. Not everybody in these movies can say that. I'm also going to put hurricanes in survive. Now we're getting to some bigger versions of things that don't happen necessarily the way they happen in real life. We're talking about earthquakes. Now, San Andreas, right, is an earthquake movie where the San Andreas fault line, it like splits open and the earth opens up. That's the kind of earthquake we're talking about, right? Where I personally live, earthquakes don't really happen that often. I don't live anywhere near a ton of big, tall buildings either. I just go out into a field, I'll be fine. But if the earth opens up underneath me, it's hard to come back from that. So it really just kind of depends on like where you're going to be. You're driving across a bridge, boom, you're dead. You're driving on the road and the entire earth just opens up, boom, you're dead. So I don't feel like it'd be fair for me to say like, oh no, I'm going to survive this one for sure, because sometimes I'm in a car, sometimes I'm driving around. But I do think that like if I survive the beginning of it, again, I'm not going to be doing anything too heroic, right? Again, I'm a bad hero for one of these movies, right? People are dying in these kind of movies because they go back to save a dog. Now, I love dogs. I don't want you to get the wrong impression here, but I'm not going back into a tornado or a crumbling building for the dog. I'm sorry. Maybe that makes me a bad person, but I don't think a bad enough person where it's going to be like, oh, now they didn't save the dog, they got to go. Plus, if disaster movies have taught us anything, we know that the dog's going to like jump out of the building at the last second anyway. So like, just let him do its thing. Like the plot armor of the dog will save it itself. You don't need to die for it to happen. So all that being said, I'm going to put earthquakes in There's a Chance. Volcanoes, that's next up. And we're talking movie Volcanoes. So really, in my mind, there's two volcano movies that we need to factor in. There's Dante's Peak and there's Volcano. Now, I think I'm in the minority here, but I think out of those two movies, I'm going to put Volcano above Dante's Peak. I just like Tommy Lee Jones too much, all right? It's the first time in a movie I remember really just seeing somebody use a cell phone too and be like, wow, that's pretty cool. Did I make a cell phone out of cardboard and pretend to be Tommy Lee Jones from the movie Volcano with some of my friends? Yes, I absolutely did that. Is that weird? Tell me in the comments below, right? There are weirder people to want to be. Tommy Lee Jones was only like a 50-year-old man with like a kid who he's estranged from. It's everybody's favorite kind of hero. But getting back to the disaster in the movie, I think Volcano itself has the more exciting volcano, right? You get like superheated water and like ash storms and all kinds of stuff like that, and some like lava in Dante's Peak. But man, in Volcano, it's like blowing up everywhere and they're knocking down buildings to divert the lava path and everything. Pretty cool. It's also got one of the most like gnarly disaster movie deaths ever, when the guy jumps into the lava to save the other dude. Man, what an awesome guy. And just like slowly sinks into the lava. That is some messed up stuff when you're a little kid. You're like, I don't want to die like that. And you don't really realize like, oh, you probably won't. Now, if the local government isn't like stepping in being like, there's no volcano, like a Jaws situation, I think I'm going to be all right in this one. Because again, as soon as they're like, there's a volcano that's going to erupt, we got to get people out of here. I'm gone. I'm leaving. We're going. And don't worry, I'm carrying an old lady. I've got a dog. Got a kid on my back. I'm going to survive. I've got enough protection here plot-wise to get myself out of there. But another thing you always got to factor in with these disaster movies is maybe you're the pre-credit death. Maybe you're like establishing the threat. And if that volcano catches me by surprise, dude, I could be in big, big trouble. I'm feeling pretty confident on this one, though. I think I'm going to put I'll survive. So now we get one that's a little too real to talk about, and it's like viral outbreaks. For this kind of disaster, I think about the movie Outbreak, starring Dustin Hoffman, where a little monkey is what gives everybody the sickness. Now, I'm not going to be patient zero in this situation, because if I see a monkey just out in the woods, I'm going to call animal services and everything's going to be all right. Would I have done that if I was a small child? Probably not. I probably would have been like, that's cool, a monkey. Did I follow hand washing regulations? Yes. Did I not go out in public when they said, hey, don't go out in public? Yes. Did I get COVID? Yes. Did I survive COVID? Yes. Now, that's not what people get in Outbreak. So maybe that's a sign that like I'm not going to make it through the Outbreak movie. Maybe it's like, no, you're going to die because I caught it and it just happened to not be like super Ebola, like it was in that movie, where your eyes like melt out of your head and everything. So, ugh. I'll put it in unlikely. Okay, so now let's talk about some fun ones. This is for The Happening. What happens in The Happening? Well, the plants put off this like pheromone or something that when you breathe it, you let yourself get eaten by lions. You jump off of buildings. You stab yourself in the neck with a sewing needle. You lay down in front of a lawnmower. All bad ways to go. Is there a way to survive this? Well, they say that, being in like heavily populated areas is something that led to a lot of the people getting killed. So that one isn't affecting me too much. Also going outside, again, something that I do every day, but not as much as some people. So, maybe it's not as big of a problem. But again, we got to stay out of the main character, like a syndrome here and just think, okay, would I be making it? Am I going to be a montage death? I hope not. I'm feeling kind of positive about this one, so I think I'm going to put it in. There's a chance that I can make it out. So now we're talking about like asteroids, meteors, Armageddons, your deep impacts. The destruction in these movies, like stuff getting blown up. It seems like if you live in a big city or around monuments or like famous landmarks, that's where you get killed. So I'm pretty safe when it comes to that. Now let's just say, for the sake of argument, I'm in New York City, right? If I'm next to the Chrysler building and it gets struck by a giant meteor and it falls on somebody, is it going to fall on me? That's the question we got to ask. If any other asteroids or little meteorite things have happened, I will be gone. It's not something where like, oh, that happened across town yesterday and I'm just going to stick around. No, I'm not. But it doesn't really seem like you get that kind of warning in these kinds of things. And plus, if we're talking like when like the big one hits, because again, I'm not a main character here. I don't know if the oil drill guys are going to be able to take the asteroid out. I hope they can, but if they don't, it's not looking good for me. So I think it's going to go unlikely on this one too. We get in now to the day after tomorrow, and global warming, climate change stuff has happened, and there's like a huge flood and a super freeze and a lot of other things that happen. So again, we'll just be in New York City when this happens. Do I have it in me to outrun a giant wave of water? I'm going to say no. I've got to be realistic. No. Again, we're in a Poseidon Adventure scenario where it's like, I hope the way that I go out is there's a mom who falls and I'm like, come on, I'll save you. And I help her up, and then I help her get up onto the fire escape. And as she reaches down to help me up too, I get swept away. And hopefully it's like a cool looking death. Like it's not just I get swept away. Just swept off screen. That's not how I want to go out. I want to be more memorable than that. It's like maybe like an oil tanker explodes or something. It's always a cool way to go out. So for me personally on this one, I think it's I think there's no hope. I think I'm done for. So back in the year 2012, legit, a lot of people thought the world was going to end, and a couple years before that happened or didn't happen, right? I guess depending on how you want to phrase it. The movie 2012 came out. I had to look up like what actually was causing the world to end in that movie because I couldn't remember. I knew there were like big floods and everything, but I guess it was like stuff happening in the core of the earth. But the thing that I would be trying to escape would be like giant earthquakes, huge, again, waves of water. The only people who survive in this movie are people who are in these giant arcs, like government made. You have to be super rich to get into them kinds of things. And that's just not going to happen. I'm not John Cusack. I'm not a main character. I'm just some random person who doesn't live anywhere near one of these things. I don't have a pilot's license, so I can't use that as a way to escape either. And so I'm gonna go out. I'm gonna die. And so there's no hope for me on this one either. So unfortunately, the world's core getting messed up is not like a one-time thing. It also happens in the movie The Core. In that it's a little bit different, like with what's going on. I think it's definitely more just kind of like, hey, isn't it cool if this happens? But with these kind of movies also, I don't want people to be like, it's got to be scientifically accurate. Like that's not that fun. just let crazy stuff happen. It's cool. Like in this movie, because of all the stuff that's going on with the core of the earth, like there's lightning storms, like specifically happen in Rome, where it's like lightning that's so strong, it's like ripping up the concrete and the Colosseum explodes, guys. If that kind of stuff can just happen like wherever, you don't get away from that. Plus there's people around electronics are getting zapped by things. I'm surrounded by that kind of stuff, right? Right now, there's like 18 different things that could shoot out core lightning at me, and I'd be, again, a goner. I don't know if I quite want to go all the way up to there's no hope. On this one, I think it's going to be similar to like an asteroid, so I'm going to put it in unlikely. So now we're getting to something that I've talked a lot about on the channel, and that's Kaiju, so big monsters. Godzilla specifically is one that I've covered on a number of different videos. You can check those out if you're interested. But, you know, surviving a Kaiju attack almost feels like you just got to treat it like anything else. Like, don't look at it, just run. Don't be one of those people that gets caught like just staring up at it. Hopefully the military is involved at this point, because they're going to take a lot of that distraction and we can get to some kind of a bunker. Also, are we in a situation like in Pacific Rim where this happens a lot, and then there are those kind of specialized bunkers you can get into to survive? If that was the case, I would give myself some pretty high odds on making it out alive. If it's just like this is the first time anything like this has ever happened, and it's like the scale of, let's say, Godzilla -1, I think that it's like there's a chance. I think there's a chance that we can make it out alive. But it really just kind of just depends on the size, what kind of destruction. I like really in watching Godzilla -1 was hit with like, oh yeah, like there's nothing you can do to stop this thing. And you need to just hopefully get behind it and far enough away that its tail's not going to knock over whatever building you're next to. I think I'm going to be generous to myself and give there's a chance. I think there's a chance I could survive a Kaiju attack. Hey, does anybody remember that movie Geostorm that came out? It's got Gerard Butler in it, and it's about this space station that can control the weather, but it like goes crazy, and people are getting like flash frozen. Like, you don't survive that. You know, there's super big waves that are taking out entire cities again and everything. It's like if you are in a town where one of these things is happening, you're gone. You're a goner. And so on this one, I think I realistically have to say there's no hope that I'm going to survive it. I'm just going to die. Let's talk about alien invasions. Am I going to survive this one? Well, we got to think about how these things usually happen, right? So if I have to be in the big city, it does lower my chances quite a bit. Am I somebody who's just going to be standing there and staring at the alien spaceship as it starts to glow? Unfortunately, if we're all honest with ourselves, I think most of us have to say yes. I want to think that I'm better than that. But like, I don't know, man. I just don't know. I'm definitely not going to be like those people on top of the building, like that get blasted by them. I'm not going to be there. I'm definitely don't want to be friends with these aliens. If anything, again, you want to be with a dog in this kind of situation. The dogs can survive anything. The cats can survive anything is what we've learned from a recent movie. Now there's a chance that, you know, you're just not close enough to the epicenter of like whatever giant explosion that you're going to be able to be like, okay, yeah, I survived. And so because of that, I'm not going to put it all the way up in no hope. I think I'm about as likely to survive this as I am the super Ebola. So that brings us to the final disaster we got to talk about. And this one's pretty easy to say, like, whether or not we would survive. If we're talking like if it actually happened, like the moon was going to crash into the earth, there's no hope for any of us. It's over.
Game over, man. It's game over.
Now the question then becomes like, when would I die during the Moonfall process? Am I going to get it at the beginning when buildings start to like crash and everything? Am I getting it at the end when like the moon is so close and it's going around the earth so fast that like the gravity is getting affected? I don't know, guys. I just don't feel like I'm that much of a fighter in that kind of a situation. It's like, oh, the moon is crashing into the earth. Okay, I guess like everybody get close and let's just give each other one big hug, because the moon's about to give us a big hug. This one has to go in no hope. There's no question. It's got to be like the highest one out of all of them. And then that's it. That finishes up the disaster tier list. So let me know, which one do you think would be the easiest to survive? Which one would be the hardest to survive? Which one am I just the most wrong about? I love hearing that in the comments. Appreciate you being here. Don't forget to check out some of the other tier lists that I've done, talking about everything from, aliens that we talk about in this video, to Godzilla, which we talk about in this video, to some of the more recent stuff, talking about Planet of the Apes. Hey, there's another one talking about like a virus that's killing everybody. We are just obsessed with the end of the world and these disasters, and I don't think that that's ever really going to change when it comes to movies. It's fun to watch things get blown up, especially when they're recognizable. So anyway, thanks again for being here. Hope that you have a great rest of your day, and I will see you next time. Take care. Bye-bye.